Hello there, friends of Unity, Joy of Life, and the followers of the Funniest Thing podcast. I'm usually on Darrell's podcast and he's interviewing me, but today is different because we're celebrating this week coming up. It's the 4th of July, and I'm telling you, you are in for some good information and wisdom today. So, friends, you may not know I actually I think most of you know who Darrell is, but I'm going to go ahead and introduce him. He is one that has, as I said, this podcast that interviews teachers of truth every week. And I guarantee if you tune into his podcast, you're going to learn something great and deep, full of wisdom that will change your life. But the other part of it is he has a good sense of humor. So you will always leave there uplifted. Now, the reason I wanted Darrell on this podcast is because he has written a book called The Great Seal. And for our 250th birthday of America, I thought today would be so apropos to have him on. And so, with that, Darrell, welcome to this wonderful exchange we're having today.
Yes, I'm really excited to do this. I have to be here with you. I'm really enthusiastic about everything I discovered about the Great Seal. For those listening, what is the Great Seal? Some of you may be scratching your head. Well, I'll tell you two things about it right off the bat. You probably don't know. Is one, it's the very first commissioned United States commissioned piece of art, and it's on the back of every dollar bill.
Which I
So
will show you. Here we
yes,
go. There we go. That's in his book.
yes.
And you know what, Darrell? I think every young person and even adults, this should be required reading because we spend money and we don't know what it means.
Oh, I didn't know what it meant for years. These were just, and it made me think, how many other people don't know what these symbols? They were just, interesting, or I would think kind of odd. The pyramid. What does this all mean? I mean, I was kind of familiar with the eagle and the symbols we're talking about. I was going to say this: it's the first nationally commissioned piece of art. And here's a little trivia if you want to show off with your friends. Now it's the 250th anniversary of the United States. And that's the signing of the Declaration of Independence. That's the date that the 4th of July represents, when we declared our independence from England once and for all. But also, just a few hours after they signed the Declaration of Independence, Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, and John Adams, if it wasn't that they just, because those were the three people who were tasked with really working on the document itself, the Declaration of Independence. So the Continental Congress said, okay, now we would like you guys to come up with a national symbol, a national emblem. So it was immediately after the signing of the Declaration of Independence that this image, these images, and one side is the front, the familiar side, I was going to say, the one with the eagle. It's very similar to the presidential seal. And then the not so well known or understood or familiar image is the back, or the reverse of the Great Seal, which is the pyramid with that strange looking eye floating above it. And there's so many conspiracy thoughts about it. But we're going to break some of those down, because it really is, when you understand what these symbols mean, first of all, you're going to be amazed at how much thought was put into it by our founding fathers. That's number one. But number two, that it's really a symbolic guide for happy and successful living. It's not about government, it's about guidance.
And that was one of the things that I learned through reading your book, that it was, as you had said, the prosperity secret of the ages, that it contains principles for happy and successful living. I wanted to get back to what made you write the book in the first place.
Ah, well, this is a fun little story. I had become pretty close friends with your mother, Nancy
Yeah.
Norman, and I'm sure everyone listening to your channel knows of Nancy Norman. This was originally her ministry, right?
Yes, indeed.
So we became close, and I started talking to her one day about all the symbolism in the Statue of Liberty. And she said, "Oh, you should write a book about that." And I said, "You know what? I can write a book. I'll make it a thin book, like the little pamphlets I liked reading, or the little booklets, like Emmett Fox's little booklet, The Golden Key. It doesn't have to be long, it just has to be informative and enlightening."
Right.
So she encouraged me to do that, which was, it takes a lot of work. But when I was done with that, she, just as an aside, said, "Well, the phrase on the Great Seal, annuit coeptus, you know what that means, right, Darrell?" And I said, "No." And she said, "It means God favors bold enterprises." And I was like, "Are you kidding me? That's so positive. It's right there on our dollar bill."
Yes.
Some credit Ben Franklin for that, but it's really not sure who actually brought that Latin phrase to this symbol, since what happened was, although Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, and John Adams were the first to start working on it, the Continental Congress kept going, "No, that's not perfect. No, not quite. Can you do this? Can you do that?" And it turned out to be over 14 different contributors. And it took 6 years for Congress to finally agree on the Great Seal as we know it today. So after I said, "Wow, that's awesome, Nancy," and she said, "You know what? I think you should write a book on all the symbols in the Great Seal." And I was thinking, well, you
Uh,
know what? I'm not going to dismiss it, because I
yeah.
really did. Although it was a lot of work doing the Statue of Liberty book, it was delightful work once I started doing it. And then
Yeah.
yeah, and then so I said, "Okay." And she sent me some old-timey, esoteric information she had collected over the years on the Great Seal. She mailed it to me. So after I received that, I was like, "Well, there's no way I'm going to let Nancy down. I'm going to follow through." And with what she, in addition to what she sent me, I also dug into the ancient meaning of all the symbols they chose, because they didn't just pull these out of thin air. I mean, these are
Right.
ancient symbols that represent spiritual principles throughout history.
I was amazed. I thought, oh my God, this is such a good book on, and it truly is like little symbols of how to live life. I was wondering if you could expand a little bit on the symbol of the eagle, and then in there you also mentioned the crow, which I
Oh,
didn't
okay.
know anything about. I thought, oh, that is such a good story. I love it.
Well, I'll just give a little quick summary on the eagle, because even I did learn in grammar school. We learned the national bird is the bald eagle. First of
Right,
all, just if everyone's scratching their head, why do they call it a bald eagle? Because that was a head scratcher when I was a kid. Yeah, there it is.
right.
That's
And there it
the
is.
that's the front of the Great Seal. And just so
Right.
you know, back in the 1700s, bald meant white, not bald like me. It actually meant white. And I guess because the people that were the writers of that time were primarily, writing in the English language, happened to be white, when someone's head would lose its hair, they would call it him bald. So
Yeah.
bald doesn't mean bald, it meant white. So the eagle was chosen because it's It represents, first of all, it's indigenous to North America, so they knew that. And there's always a exoteric and an esoteric meaning to these symbols. The esoteric is the obvious, and the exoteric is like the ancient spiritual meaning. So,
Nice.
so the exoteric or the outer meaning is courage and resilience. That's what an eagle represents exoterically, just by its nature, by its
Yeah.
own natural nature. An eagle is resilient and courageous. But for years prior to the United States even being discovered, the spiritual meaning or the the esoteric meaning, the inner meaning is vision. So it meant not just vision through sight, vision through imagination. So
Nice.
the eagle on the Great Seal represents, yes, it's our national bird. Yes, it represents courage or confidence and resilience. Key word there, resilience. But through what? Through what? Through the use of imagination, the ability to see what's not here yet, the ability to
I love that.
imagine, the
Yeah,
ability to
yeah.
imagine. And I'll tell you that the founding fathers could have never even considered going against uh, England I mean, to separate themselves. I mean, this was crazy because we did not have a navy. England had the greatest navy. England was the most powerful nation in the world. Uh, they had a standing army. We didn't have a standing army. So they had to already imagine themselves, feeling themselves having won in their hearts with their imagination, or they would have never begun. They would have never considered it. So imagination is the birth of all innovation and great things. And I include the great, my favorite quote. I'm going to look at it so I don't misquote him, from Albert Einstein, which I think is just superb. Imagination is everything. It is the preview of life's coming attractions.
See, that is so true. And that's what we teach in Unity.
Yes.
How powerful the imagination is, that you see all possibility and not be defeated by what you think is right in front of you. And
Yes.
that's why I liked the story of the crow.
Oh,
Um,
yes. I got to tell
yeah,
that
so
story.
tell that story because that's
Okay.
fantastic.
Okay. There is a parable, an old parable about, it's called The Eagle and the Crow. I'm going to read it so I don't muck it up because
Okay.
it's just so good, and it's brief enough to read. And think about what I'm reading, and it not just for you personally. And here's the thing, like I don't know if I mentioned this, but the 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 Great Seal is not about, like I did mention it, it's not about government, it's not about politics, it's about guidance. And it's a symbol of what the founding fathers considered. It's a symbol of how this new experiment in freedom is to be developed, maintained, and nurtured.
Oh,
So these,
yeah,
a nation, we got to remember, I always thought these symbols were decorations for the United States. I didn't know that they had such significant meaning for each and every one of us as citizens, which makes perfect sense because a nation is made up of individuals. So if these symbols, they're not just abstract ideas for a government, they're actually spiritual principles for each of us. And if we live
yeah,
by these principles, not only will we continue to develop, uh, maintain our health, prosperity, love, happiness, but we'll also be nurturing those things by living according to these principles ourselves. So here it is, folks, the eagle and the crow. Let me put on my glasses. Okay. The only bird that dares to attack an eagle is a crow, but the eagle never fights back. Here's why. The crow is the only bird bold enough to sit on the eagle's back and peck its neck, relentless and annoying, but the eagle stays calm. The eagle doesn't flap, doesn't fight, doesn't waste energy. It does one thing: it rises. The higher the eagle soars, the thinner the air becomes. The crow can't handle that altitude. Eventually, the crow gasps, loses strength, and falls off. Not because the eagle attacked, but because the eagle ascended. Let the crows talk, let them peck. You don't have to respond, just keep going higher. They can't follow you forever. Your growth will suffocate their noise, so don't engage, elevate.
I love that. That is such a great principle to live by every single day. There's going to be crows that are going to be pecking at you. Just rise higher, go beyond where, and they will fall away. I love that. One of the things on the eagle, there's the shield there,
Yeah,
and it is in red, white, and blue. And I didn't know what those colors represented. I just thought, oh, good, we have the red, white, and blue, in our flag, blah, blah, blah. But they actually mean something.
yes, they do. I remember when I was starting this book, when I was going to School 9 in Clifton, New Jersey, we did have really good teachers back then, and they did share about what the colors represented, what represent, and what they intended to represent. Um, I don't know if we learned a lot of Revolutionary War history because we lived in New Jersey, so there was always something to see close to our house. I mean, I lived a
Right.
stone's throw away from Washington's headquarters. We had Washington's lookout right there in Clifton, New Jersey, on the Garrett Mountain uh, area. We had the Patterson Falls, where Alexander Hamilton saw the potential for our industry to be powered by these falls. So there was always a lot there. I'm once again going to refer to my book, ladies and gentlemen, because I don't want to get any of this wrong. I mean, I have a good memory, but you know what the carpenter's rule is: measure twice, cut once.
Yeah.
So these colors were picked for a reason, and this is what they represent, or they're symbolic of. So red is symbolic of courage and resilience. And I love that word, resilience. It's
Oh, I
so,
know, I do too. Yep.
yeah, courage and resilience. White symbolizes purity of purpose.
Mm.
And we could talk about purpose a little because that has to do with the olive branch and the arrows that the eagle is holding. So white symbolizes purity of purpose, and blue symbolizes fairness and steadfast unity.
I love that. Fantastic. I
Yeah,
mean, because I just thought, oh, they picked those colors because they look good together. And it's not that. They were so purposeful
yeah.
in everything that they chose. And that's why I really want people to not only get your book, but it would be so fantastic if all schools would teach the kids what their medium of exchange is. It's really important. I wanted to ask you because I can't pronounce the Latin words,
Okay,
but you
I've
said it
gotten.
so nice. You said it pretty good.
Well, I used to never know how to pronounce them until I started writing this book and thought to myself, well, you better know how to pronounce these words. if someone
Yeah.
asks you about them. So I've gotten pretty good at it. So,
So what do they mean? The
okay.
first one you said, but
Okay.
yeah. So now you can pronounce them for
Okay.
us.
I'll do all, there's actually three. There's three Latin phrases, all carefully chosen. All right. So, first of all, is the one I mentioned, annuit coeptis, and it's from Latin. It it means he favors, and he meaning God. He favors our undertakings. It also can be translated as God favors bold enterprises. And it makes sense because whenever we have big dreams, they have all, or big goals, they carry so much more magnetizing energy that seem to attract all the support we need. And like they're much more powerful than small goals or wishy-washy goals. But I know for myself, when I commit to something, like when Lori and I committed to, make a move or buy a rental property, I mean, it's so big and beyond my will trying to figure out how it's all going to work that I really have to dive in with faith. And faith and the love affair of the goal seem to create an incredible energy that magnetizes things to just seemingly fall into place or coincidences to occur. And because I'm in that healthy attitude, um, when things don't seem to go as planned, it makes it easier in these incidences for Lori and I go, okay, that wasn't meant to be. Nothing happens by mistake. And it allows us to rely on divine order, divine timing. So that's a nuit coeptis. All right. God favors bold enterprises, or he favors our undertakings. The other one is novus ordo seclorum. Now, both these Latin phrases, if you're looking at the back of the dollar, these are the ones that are on the side, the reverse of the Great Seal, which is with the pyramid. So on the up top, above the floating eye, annuit coeptis. At the bottom, below the pyramid, novus ordo seclorum. And that means a new order of the ages. And I'm going to refer to here because I want to get what our founding fathers believed, verbatim. Okay. And this is what this is like remember, there's the esoteric and there's the exoteric, the outer, the obvious. So the obvious, the phrase was celebrating the founding of the United States as a dawn of a new era in human freedom and governance. Now remember, up until this time, I mean, this was a crazy idea because this was
Right.
the first time in the history of society or civilization as we knew it, where a monarch or a dictatorship or a despot or I can't even think of other words to represent a top down type of government where enforcement and coercion and fear is used to control the citizens. This was the first time the citizens were going to govern themselves. So
That's fantastic.
it was really the dawn of a
Oh,
new era in human
yeah. And it was
freedom.
a
Yeah,
bold idea.
it was. So symbolically, now, if you take all the other symbols on the reverse of the Great Seal, and I'll just give a quick breakdown because they basically represent these five principles, which are trust inspiration, your intuition and inspiration, follow divine guidance, commit to growth, start where you are. You have everything you need right where you are, and boldly act. And remember, these are the five things that the founding fathers and the the um, civilians and the population of the Americans at that time had to apply individually to go forward with this. So
Mm-hmm.
when you follow those five principles, you don't just change your life, you actually create a ripple effect. A new order starts to happen. When you move toward your goal, once you make a decision, which is represented by the date at the base of the triangle,
Mm-hmm.
1776 in Roman numerals. If you don't know what that MCVV, that's the Rome.
It's a long number. I never knew that. So
Yes.
I'll show. Yes, it was here we go.
Yeah.
Right there.
MDCCLXXVI. That's the Roman numerals for 1770.
1776. I
And the
love it.
reason, okay, so here's another thing. Why did they use Latin and Roman numerals? Because they knew they would withstand the test of time. Because seemingly that language seems to be fundamental to all most languages that we know of, and it could always, because it's so historically grounded, it could always easily be referenced. So
And the other part of it, which I love, so if you
yeah.
look here, it's the foundation
Yes, yeah, because that's
of
making a decision. It's a
exactly.
decision.
So that when you say a new order, that is saying starting on this date, this is the
Yes.
foundation from which we grow.
Yes. And
Yeah.
this is true for individuals because once we make a decision, that is key. That starts, from my own experience, once I finally commit to a decision and I'm not
Yeah.
vacillating, that's when hope starts to bubble up, turn into faith. I start getting enthusiastic, uh, which which is from Latin, which meaning infused by God. So you become enthusiastic, and that's when it creates a ripple effect, a whole new order. Because then we start affecting the people we meet. Like
Yes.
what our experience is going to change. It creates a new order of the ages for us as individuals. And because we live in the United States, we have the freedom to make a decision, to
Mm-hmm.
follow intuitive leads, to decide for ourselves where we're going to live, what career path we want to take. And we
Yeah.
have the freedom to do that, all of us. So,
Yeah. And freedom
that's,
of choice, freedom of
yeah,
speech. I know. It's
yeah.
just
So,
lovely.
so there's one more Latin phrase, and that's on the front, and that's known as the motto of the United States, and it's E pluribus unum, E pluribus unum, and that's out of many one. Out of many one. What does that even mean? I don't get it, but now I do because I did all the homework, folks. So you don't have to. That's why, I highly recommend this book. It's a very short book. First of all, I want to let
That's
everyone
what I
know.
love about it. It's
It's yeah,
easy to read. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
to the point. I didn't.
Yeah.
This is for people who want to know what these symbols and phrases mean
Yes.
and not have to wade through all the stuff that I waded through to boil it down to this.
Yeah.
And that last phrase, that's our motto, E pluribus unum. Ironically, 13 letters. There is so much of the number 13 in this symbol. I didn't even take it upon myself to point out everywhere there's 13, but just for uh, for the sake of this interview, I'll just give you a few right off the bat. There's 13 arrows. There's
Oh, great.
there's 13 leaves on the olive branch. There's 13 berries on the olive branch. There's 13 stars in the constellation. There's 13 stripes on the shield. Um, I'm looking at the back, so I remember. I have my little brass coin. That's the front and back of the Great Seal here. There's 13. They call them steps on the pyramid. It's 13
Yes.
steps.
Yeah.
So we could. There's a few more things in that are in the book, so we don't
Well,
need to
and
go over them.
that's what I want everyone, because we're gonna close this now. I want everyone to go to Amazon and get The Great Seal by Darrell Fusaro. It's as he said, it's just a small little book, but packed full of information. And what I love the most that everybody knows about the dollar bill is that it says, "In God we trust."
Oh, the back of
And
the dollar bill. It
that's
can
the main thing, right?
the back of the dollar bill. First, let me let people know real quick. E pluribus unum, because it does mean, like I said, out of many one. And I, for the sake of the book, I give each symbol its standard description, which is this is e pluribus unum. But then I give it a quick, instant meaning in contemporary language. So I sum it up as join hands, build dreams. E
Oh,
pluribus unum, join hands, build dreams. And what it means is it's having a singleness of purpose. You know, the 13 colonies came together with a singleness of purpose, and that was establishing the first nation to be governed entirely by its citizens, a people united in freedom, meaning they had to work together. They had
yeah.
to make compromises. I mean, you got to remember, these individual colonies did not agree on everything. They were
Yeah.
totally different people doing different things, believing in different ways of governing. Some of them were reluctant to leave, break free from England. So they had to really learn to compromise and work together for a greater cause.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
I wanted to get that in there.
I'm so glad you did. I'm so happy that you joined me today instead of the other way around. I always love being on your podcast, but today was so special. And with our 250th birthday, I'm just so grateful that you and I could celebrate that together. And for all of you that are listening, have a most beautiful 4th of July. God bless you, and thank you for listening, taking time to learn more about who we are as a country. God bless you. Until next time, we're keeping the faith for you.